In the 1980s, Jeff Stevenson spent some of his spare time walking the streets and wharves of Portland, often with a camera in hand. Stevenson worked as a commercial photographer, but the photographs he took outdoors, especially along the waterfront, were for his own enjoyment.
Now he has collected the best of those images in a new book called Photography and Transformation: Portland, Maine in the 1980s. It's a look back at the city at a time when it was going through some dramatic changes. The photos that Jeff Stevenson shot in the 1980s did not come about because he was just ambling around hoping to get lucky. His approach was exactly the opposite: deliberate and thoughtful.
I would walk around the old port and I'd look at things and I'd think, maybe at 4 o'clock on a day with an interesting sky, this would be a good shot. And I would jot notes down to myself.
Stevenson wanted to document Portland, especially the waterfront of the 1980s, with all its grit and character.
Clearly what was part of the visual draw for you was buildings that are old and kind of falling apart.
Yes, this is true, because they have a lot of texture. They also were disappearing, and I thought that that was worth photographing, and that it was something I had to do soon.
Some of what Stevenson photographed was indeed gone just a few years later, such as a Portland Terminal Company building on China Clay Pier, old elevator machinery in the Swayze building on Commercial Street, the $1 Million Bridge between Portland and South Portland, and Vinnie Cavanaugh in his boat shop.
This is fascinating because January 1982, this looks like it could be 1932.
I know.
With the stove.
The potbelly stove, and yet he has these posters that were popular in college bedrooms.
I remember the hang in there, baby, with that. I remember that one
and this one, tired of the same old, we won't say it.
Other scenes are still around. Here's a look at the outside of the Porthole restaurant then and now. The inside of the Porthole then and now. The slip between Custom House Wharf and Portland Pier as it was and as it is. And the J.J. Newberry building on Congress Street then and now. At the time, Stevenson worked with an 8x10 camera generally used for commercial photography.
How would you describe, in a nutshell, the kind of images that you got with this camera?
I would describe them as hyper-real.
The camera, quite large, easily noticed, helped break the ice on the rare occasions when he photographed people.
They were sometimes amused by the camera, you know. It's kind of like, you want to photograph our old junk? Yeah, sure, go ahead, you know.
You took these photos 4 decades ago, long time. What made you think, at some point fairly recently, that they ought to be collected and put into a book?
I figured it was now or never. And I thought it's worth saving and seeing, or else I can just throw them all away and not worry about it. And I thought, no, this effort was worth looking at.
It's interesting. It's not that long ago. It's only 40 years ago, but the city has changed.
Dramatically. It's gone from being a place where you could basically wander as far as you dared, and then now it's a place that's much more gated off. And properties they don't encourage people to walk in and just look around.
It must be gratifying to you to know that a book will endure and therefore the photos will last and they're not just going to be tucked away in a closet somewhere.
Yeah, that's very satisfying. And in fact, the day after I mailed a copy to a friend of mine, an old friend of mine in Connecticut, he called me up and he said, "You have a legacy now." And I said, "Geez, I thought that was my kids, but but yeah, it's true. I know what he means."
A legacy indeed. A lasting photographic document of what Stevenson calls an era when time seemed to move more slowly.
Man.
There's something about those black and white photos
Yes.
taken on film with one of those great old cameras. They're really special.
Well, and I love something that he said in the beginning when you asked me, like, why are you taking pictures of these buildings? They're all falling apart. And he's like, the texture of it, which to me says, okay, you're not just going out there to photograph a pretty picture. You want to capture the essence of what is really out there for the viewers.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, the name of Jeffrey Stevenson's new book is Photography and Transformation, Portland, Maine in the 1980s.